There's so many different things to consider when setting up a business. But I would argue, and I suppose I would because it's a marketing company that I run, that marketing is probably, if not the most important, certainly one of the most important areas that you should be considering when setting up a business. And it's for some very simple reason that marketing is all about generating profit for your business. Most of the other things that you're doing, every other aspect to your business, there is a cost implication. It is drawing money out of the business. You can do production, you can improve your production, but ultimately it's a cost to the business. So you're looking at ways of minimizing that cost. Marketing is all about generating inquiries, improving your conversion rates, looking at keeping your customers for longer and so on. But it's all about bringing people into the business and using it. It's really an engine. It's about creating an engine of growth for your company. And without that engine of growth, frankly, you won't have a business. You might have a fantastic product, but if you don't tell people about it, then nobody will know about it. I had a very fortunate opportunity to meet Sir John Harvey-Jones a few years ago when he was running a seminar in Leicester. And I was asking him about what his views were on marketing, because he's an engineer by background. And he said that the biggest problem with British industry, British commerce in general at the moment is that it believes the expression, if you build a better mousetrap, people will buy it. And he said that's the biggest load of bollocks I've ever heard. Because you could build the best mousetrap in the world, but if you've got it in your garage and nobody knows about it, nobody will buy it. He said it's got to all be about marketing, people getting the message out there, explaining the benefits of what it is that you do, not the features, not telling them about why you set up the company necessarily. It's about the benefits to your potential customers and the benefits to your ongoing customers, the people that you want to be dealing with on an ongoing basis. Very, very important. So I'm going to rush through in the next 20 minutes or so. I'll give you some ideas of these different marketing areas. Now, I've picked 10, or about 9 or 10 different areas. There could be 20, frankly. There could be a lot more areas, but these are the ones that I think for startup businesses are probably the most important ones to get right from early on. So the first one is branding. If you don't get your branding right from the outset, then all you're going to have to do is redo your branding a second time and redo it again a third time. So you want to not just get it right, but think about how that could change and alter in the future. So branding is more than a logo. I think a lot of people think, oh, if I get the logo sorted, that's my branding done. It's actually a lot more than that. It's about thinking through what the logo, what all the aspects of the business say about your business to potential customers. So do you want to come across as being expensive? Do you want to come across as being friendly? Do you want to come across as being a professional company who is an expert in this area, who's an expert in this niche area? Or what is it you want to do? Because if you don't know, you can't even start going about creating a brand. So you've got to sit down and work out, go through the different aspects of your business and say, okay, where are my strengths? Where are my weaknesses? Who are my customers? What are the sort of messages that they're used to seeing? Study the competition. Go through that whole process. And it doesn't have to be, we're not talking about months of research here, just a few hours on the internet at the beginning to get it going, but to have a sense and understanding of what it is that you want to be putting across. What is the message that you're putting across? Because I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you meet somebody and they give you their brochure and it's printed out on some homemade printer and it's got bands across it and it's smudged and it's got a spelling mistake in the headline, and they're trying to charge premium prices, but what they're presenting you with is tat. It's rubbish. You think, well, and there's a massive discrepancy. Similarly, if somebody is coming to you and saying, we're the cheapest in town, but all their brochures are thick, glossy paper and so on, it's not quite right. There's a discrepancy there. So branding is partly about deciding on who is your audience, what type of person do you want to be dealing with, and creating all your brand and your image around that particular market. Makes an awful lot of sense. And just one small thing before going to the next point about branding is, think ahead. Think about what you could be doing in 6 months' time, in a year's time, and so on. So, for example, Vanilla Recruitment. I don't know if you've seen their stand here. Vanilla have got, they've got a great bit of branding. Really got it well worked out. But as they've gone on over the years, they've added different divisions and different areas and different services. The logo that they've got works on newsletters. It works for seminars that they run. They've got ideas about advertising using the name of Vanilla and so on. So whatever it is that they add to their portfolio of services, it's covered by the branding that they've done from the beginning. So it's just worth bearing in mind, thinking, okay, I'm concentrating on this bit at the moment. Maybe in a couple of years' time, what other directions potentially could I go in? So, for example, if you said, well, actually, I'm going to start in Market Harborough at the moment. If you're a hairdresser and you're starting in Market Harborough, and you say, well, actually, one day, I'd quite like to be in Leicester, and I'd quite like to be in Corby, and I'd quite like to be in Loughborough. Don't call yourself the Harborough hairdresser, because that's instantly going to limit you. Otherwise, you're going to have to change your name when you move out into different territories, unless that's something you decide to do. If you say, okay, hairdressers, the best little hairdresser in Harborough, that's what you're going to call yourself. But at the back of your mind, you think, well, what we can do is we can set up franchises for different towns in the area. So it's always worth thinking ahead, thinking about things that you're not necessarily thinking about at the moment, but thinking in a year's time we could change in this way. Otherwise, you can sometimes end up a bit boxed in. Second thing, now as a startup, you might not be in this position at the moment, but promise you now, the success of your business long term in terms of marketing will be probably built around your database. It's not for every single industry, but for most industries, you want to create a database. Now that it doesn't matter whether you're selling to businesses or whether you're selling plumbing services to people in local villages. You want to, as much as possible, capture data from people that you come into contact with. There's always one £20 fine. You want to capture that information, because when you come into contact with people at an event like this, you might meet somebody, they may be quite interested in the services that you do, but they're not necessarily going to buy from you there and then. Very few times will you meet somebody and they'll say, do you know what, Alastair, I need somebody to do my marketing and PR right now, come on, let's do a deal. It doesn't happen that often. What they do is, oh, could do with some help in marketing PR, we're thinking of doing something differently, maybe give me a ring next week or give me a ring in a couple of weeks' time. If I haven't captured their details and put them into a database and added them to my newsletter list, chances are that potential bit of new business is going to be gone forever. And although people say they're going to phone you up, do you know what? Sometimes they don't. They're rotten like that. They promise so much and deliver so little. So always keep their detail, get their email address, get their phone number, and then you've got some information that you can follow them up with and get in touch and say, oh, by the way, did you know about this? Did you know about that? What you're not doing all the time is annoying them by trying to sell them stuff all the time. What you are doing is giving them information, valuable information, letting them know about offers that you've got on, or some extra information that you found out about some new legislation that's been introduced, or in my case, practical marketing tips for small businesses. You're giving them ongoing streams of information that will help them do whatever it is that they want to do with their business. A website you might want to write down, nothing to do with me at all, but it's a really good website, which in fact David, who is on camera 1 or camera 2 over here, told me about originally. It's called yourmailinglistprovider.com, yourmailinglistprovider.com, and it's a great website if you're going to send out email newsletters. It's got templates that you can load up. You can add in text, you can add in photograph, you can add in links to videos, and you can use that to send out literally hundreds of emails to people that you've met at events, friends and so on. You add your emails onto there, it'll tell you who's opened your email, it'll tell you if they've clicked through any particular links, and it costs, I think the version I use costs something like £6 a month. And you get all that reporting, all the design software, for literally just a few pennies a day. It's a tremendous bit of technology that I would highly recommend. There's lots of websites that do this kind of thing. Probably the best known one is called MailChimp. But of the different ones that are out there, I personally think that this is the best one. This is the one that I would personally recommend. But one thing that very few people do, and I would highly recommend it, is send out article pitches about something related to your company. And if you want to see some examples of these in print, visit my stand. I've got a whole book of articles that have appeared in national magazines or local magazines and newspapers that have started off as a 2 or 3 sentence pitch that we've sent to the editor. So all we've done is we've said, with the current fiasco at Terminal 5 Heathrow, this is going back a few years, but the fiasco at Terminal 5 Heathrow, a lot of problems with the IT systems. When they launched, all these things went wrong. It's going to, very embarrassing for BA. What went wrong, and what can small business owners learn from their mistake? We pitched that out to various different magazines. I think there's about 8 magazines came back and said, oh yeah, we'd be interested in an article in this. And so we would write an article between 500 words and 2,000 words for these different magazines on that subject for one of our clients who's an IT company, and they published that article. Now that does a couple of things. First of all, it's got their details so people can get in touch with them at the end. It positions that person as an expert, and you get some inquiries from people who've read the magazine article. Secondly, just as importantly in my experience, in fact probably more importantly in terms of new business that it generates, you could then take a copy of that article and mail it to people who are on your mailing list, which was point 2. So all the people that you've got on your mailing list that you send your newsletter out to, you can send them a link to the website that the article was featured on, or you put that article on your website and create a link so that it'll bring them back to your website. Those are people who you'd like to do business with, and they've heard about you a little bit, but they don't know that much about you. But by positioning yourself as an expert, which you are presumably in whatever field that you're doing, they're more likely to buy from you. And what you're not doing is saying, buy now, here's a special deal or anything like that. All you're doing is saying, I know what I'm talking about. Look, I'm good enough to be published in The Economist or Prima magazine or whatever the magazine is that you happen to be in. I must know what I'm talking about because they've asked me to write an article on this subject. And the Andrew Granger stand, I don't know if you saw Andrew Granger's got a stand here. I do some marketing and PR for them. We've probably got them, I would say 30 articles in the last 6 or 7 months on all sorts of different subjects to do with, what's going to happen with the property market. Is it going well? Is it going badly? What type of survey do you need? Articles on agriculture, because those are some of the different markets they're in. So all sorts of different subjects, the specialist areas that they offer. But we've pitched articles to different magazines, and because they know what they're talking about, or different people in that organisation know about different aspects of what they're talking about, it gets picked up, they run stories on it, and it generates inquiries. It helps with credibility. Fourth thing is networking. Now, when I first set up in business in 2003, I used to hate going to networking events. And to be honest, I don't actually enjoy going to them very much. I don't mind talking to people. I love talking to people, that's fine. But I find it's quite intimidating going into a room and going up to strangers and going, hi, don't know me, and it's all a bit embarrassing, and oh, what if they don't like me, and all that sort of thing. And everyone seems to think it's very easy, apart from you. Well, the truth is most people find it quite awkward, but that personal contact is a really great way of generating business. But what people do, and this is where people get it wrong when they do networking, is they go up and they talk to people and they try and be interesting and they do all that sort of stuff. Best thing to do is just ask questions and find out a little bit about the person that you're talking to. Rather than telling them your life story, find out a little bit about them first. So just sit back, listen to what it is that they've got to say, and it's more interesting that way because you learn about people and learn about why they've got to what it is that they're doing, and B, it's actually better long term because you can't possibly advise somebody on what they should do unless you know where they're coming from, what it is that they do for a living, what problems that they've got. It's only once you've found those things out that you could possibly advise them on what it is that they should maybe consider doing about their marketing or whatever it is that they happen to have. So that's one tip on networking. Networking is about, it's a whole subject in its own right, really, networking. There's lots of different things that you could consider. But one thing I would consider is joining what's called a strong networking group. So that is a group that meets on a weekly basis or perhaps a fortnightly basis, which has the same members in it. But those types of events are phenomenally good, particularly for startup businesses, because at the beginning, you don't quite know where to turn, you don't know who to ask to do this or that, but you can tap into that experience of people who've been in business for a long time. They'll tell you happily what things that they did that they wouldn't repeat. They can give you, each one of those people has got their own network of contacts and people that they know, and you can tap into all of those. So it's a really good way of instead of having to meet hundreds of new people in lots of different ways, meeting a small group of people, and each one of those people, because you see them every week, will let you into their networks. I would recommend doing some kind of networking, even if you find it uncomfortable, because usually the things in life that you find difficult are actually the things that you should be doing. So if you find it really difficult to write direct mail letters, probably you should be writing direct mail letters. Or if you find technology around your website difficult, probably that's something that you should be doing. Maybe you shouldn't be doing, maybe you should get somebody else doing it, but it's probably something that you should be doing for your company.